A quick disclaimer before we begin, the PEMF podcast does not contain any medical advice, and the content provided is for informational purposes only. If you have any health concerns, please visit a healthcare professional. Welcome back to another episode of the PEMF podcast. Today we're joined by Billy Laninovich, a Supercross veteran who continues to race at the highest level even at the age of 42. We'll dive into how he's been able to stay competitive and recover from intense physical demand of racing, and the role that PEMF therapy has played in his longevity and performance. But Billy, just if you can help to introduce yourself and introduce your friend that you've got there as well, because I know he comes along with you a lot of the time, and just kind of tell us about what you're doing and what you've achieved over the time.
Yeah, so I'm Billy Laninovich. This is my dog Bingo. He's a pug. He goes everywhere with me, goes to the tracks with me, and to almost all the Supercrosses, unless I have to fly. He's only missed one race since I've been back since last year. So, so I race professionally, not motocross, but Supercross. I was a professional motocross Supercross when I was younger, from 2002 until 2012. I took 12 years off. I was a motocross coach for 6 years after that, after I stopped in 2012, and then wanted to do something different. And I went and became an electrician. And then, in 2012, kind of when I stopped racing, I was a privateer. I was always a factory rider until my last year, and then I was a privateer. And I had a rich lady that asked if I wanted to race again. So I started racing for her in 2012, and then in 2013, I felt great. I think I finished 7th in 2012 in the series in Supercross, and I was really looking forward to 2013. I had a year under my belt, and she got sick and almost died. And so that kind of just quit my career. And that's how I stopped racing. And I always felt like God said I was going to come back to racing. Well, at 40 or 39 years old, 38 years old, I'm roping in a room doing electrical work for a big contractor here in San Diego. And I'm like, man, there's no way I'm going to be able to come back and race at almost 40 years old. And then, I don't know, man, God opened up the doors for me, and here we are racing motorcycles again.
No, great. So what got you into racing in the first place? Where did the story begin?
Well, my dad used to race when he was younger. My grandma absolutely hated it, my dad's mom. And so when my dad was younger, my grandma made him quit. And my dad was a really good rider. And so my dad loved riding. So he got me riding when I was 2.5 years old on a little 3-wheeler called a YZ Zinger. And I loved it. It's all I ever wanted to do was ride my motorcycle. The only way they could get me out of bed was, Billy, you want to go ride? So they would say that when I had to go to school just to get me out of bed. And they would trick me. But it was something I loved. So from 2.5 years old till 7, I just rode for fun. And then at 7 years old in 1990, my dad put me in my very first race at Verona Oaks. And it was just something that I absolutely loved doing. All I wanted to do was ride my motorcycle. And I didn't want to do any other sports. So I just rode. And by the time I was probably 14 years old, my dad started seeing potential in me. And then we started going to amateur nationals. And then that's how I got into it.
And you were riding a pretty high level. Just for our audience, you mentioned Supercross, and it was something that I was looking into because, especially in the UK, it's a sport that isn't as highly kind of viewed or watched. A lot of our audience are from the US anyway, so they will know this. But what's the main difference between Supercross and motocross? Because motocross is more, I think, what people would understand.
Yeah, so Supercross is really tight spaces, like in a stadium. So you guys have football, or I think you guys call it something else, but in that kind of stadium, really tight, a lot of jumps, a lot of rhythms, whoop-de-doos. Motocross is open. It's really spread out. So like a Supercross track is anywhere from, say, 48 seconds to a minute 5. And an outdoor track could be 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes long for one lap. And so the Supercross races, the times are different for how long we stay out on the track. We stay out, the 250 class stays out for 15 minutes plus one lap. and the 450 stay out for 20 minutes plus one lap. Where outdoors, it's 30 minutes plus two laps. So we're out there for 35, 36 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, no, good. Thanks for that. And you've been sponsored by some pretty big brands in the past. Doing some research on you, Yamaha, and also brands now. How was all that?
Yeah, so when I first turned pro, I rode for Red Bull KTM, factory KTM for 2 years. And then I went to Honda. I rode for, it was called Sobi Samsung Honda back in the day. Got to ride with those guys. And I rode for them for 4 years. And then what did I do? I think I went back to factory Red Bull KTM for a year. And then I rode for Monster Energy Kawasaki. I did a fill-in ride when Tim Ferry had broken his ankle. And they had just asked me to help test their bikes. So I did a couple weeks of testing, and they needed a rider and threw me right in the mix to start racing.
Yeah. So doing some research on you before this, you kind of, don't be offended by this, you're kind of known as the old man in the sport, which, is barbaric because you're only a couple of years older than me. So, you're 42 now, but you're kind of breaking records for being the oldest Supercross rider. But I think the thing that people probably don't understand is the toll that it takes doing motocross or Supercross on your body and the injuries that you sustain. So listening to another podcast you've done, you're reeling off all these injuries, and some of the people are quite battered up by the time they get to your age. So for them to continue on the sport is impossible. So is that something that you was quite nervous about coming back at the age you are now?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Racing is a very, very dangerous sport. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. I just felt like God was going to bring me back. And then I had all these situations happen where I had a really good friend of mine now who called me and got me to quit my job to train his son. And so that's how it all started. I hadn't been riding it was like 8 years. I maybe rode 20 times, and that was just going out to a buddy's property and riding. I wasn't training or riding to race or nothing like that. So all these things just started happening, and mentally I felt like, man, I think I could still do it. Obviously, I was super slow because I hadn't been riding. I just got back on a bike in 2023, at the end of 2023. And I did a podcast. I mentioned I wanted to come back and try to race again. And Pastor Larry from Faith reached out to me, and they got me a bike. And man, it was horrible. I was so slow. I didn't jump a triple on the track for, I think, a month, maybe a month and a half. And it took me about a month to jump the big rhythms and stuff. But I just slowly worked my way into it and just got comfortable. I didn't rush it. But yeah, like you're saying, it's a very dangerous sport. There's a lot of risk in it. But I think that God has me here for a reason. And that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah. What sort of injuries have you sustained over your career then? Just as a quick summary. I know we might be here for a while.
Yeah. It's honestly not that bad. My body is a lot better than most of my competitors that I race with. I think I've had 3 broken collarbones, broken wrist. I've had 4 ACL reconstructions. I fractured my C3 in my neck, a broken leg, and then maybe 5 concussions. And that's about it. I think I have 4 herniated discs in my back from back in the day, but it doesn't bother me. But with my recovery stuff,
very laid back about quite.
Yeah. But with my recovery stuff,
no, that's the minor side. You've been lucky to only have those.
Yeah. No, there's been guys out there that have been a lot more hurt. I can't run too well because of my knees, but I can mountain bike, I can road bike, do all that stuff. So my body's good. And then plus taking that 12 years from 2012 to 2024 off, I think that let my body heal so much to where I'm able to do it now. Because when you do it year after year, your body just gets so banged up and stuff. So that's why the recovery stuff is so important. Yeah. That stuff helps tremendously.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons, why we wanted you to come on the podcast is talk about the kind of complementary side of things and what really attracted to us to, how you're keeping going at the age you are. So let's start off with the PEMF. How did you first, where did your PEMF journey begin? When did you ever first hear about it, and what was that experience? Yeah,
so I had a chiropractor that I started going to around 2023, and I have a bad hip, I never broke it or anything, but it's full of arthritis. My right hip's really bad. My range of motion's bad. So every once in a while, maybe 3 to 5 times a year for a week at a time, maybe 2 weeks at a time, it'll bother me. And so he put me on a, I forget the name of it, but it's a really high-end PMF. It's a table with a mat that you stick on top of you. And it literally took my pain away. I could not believe how much it helped my hip. I mean, immediately after I got done with the session. Mm-hmm. So he got me on that.
That was probably a high intensity one, I'm assuming. You could feel that one.
It was. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Man, I forget the name of it. It's a really top of the line PMF, but yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a very high intensity one.
Oh, cool. So that was the first time you experienced it. What did you take from that session? And, are you still using PMF at the moment?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I believe in those things. It's crazy. So, I started going to my chiropractor using his PMF, and I got introduced kind of to the hyperbaric through him too. I had a big crash in San Diego last year. I got landed on. I wasn't broken, but my body was really banged up. So I had a week to recover from my next race. And so I was in the hyperbaric, I think I was with him 4 days in a row. And then I went to Sport Recovery. They're up in Anaheim, where the Anaheim Supercross was. And I was able to get into their hyperbaric, I think another day or two before the race. And then for the PMF, yeah. After that injury, every time I went in, I'm like, hey, I went on that table. And he would put me on there. And that was a tremendous help from that crash in San Diego last year to my next race, where I think that was the first race I qualified since I'd been back to racing after 12 years. Yeah, they do wonders. Absolutely wonders.
Yeah. So we'll come to the hyperbaric because that's something I want to talk to you about as well. In terms of the PMF, are you using that more at the moment as preventative? Are you using it like daily, or is it really when you pick up an injury and you just want to like hit it with something hard?
No, I use it every day. So I have a Beamer. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Yeah.
But I use that thing every day, multiple times a day, probably 10 times a day. I think you're only supposed to use it maybe twice for 8 minutes a day.
Yeah.
But I have a wrist injury right now. Mm-hmm. So I use it on my wrist multiple times a day. I use it for injuries to help the recovery. And then I also use it for my training.
Yeah.
It just helps that blood flow and helps your recovery. So when you wake up the next morning, I'm not as sore and stuff like that. I'm ready to go.
So for the benefit of our audience, the Beamer is a lower intensity device. And that's one that you're using like multiple times a day. So that's going to help with more of a preventative thing. So no, that's great. And is there like a standout story for you you mentioned obviously last year, you had an accident, you had to speed that up within a week. Was you able to get back on the track within that week?
Yeah, well, not during that week. I wasn't able to ride during the week for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. I was just showing up to the races. That's how banged up my body was. The biggest difference was this year.
Yeah.
The first time I qualified for Supercross this year was in Arizona Supercross at Glendale. I had crashed the week before in San Diego and tore my fascia on my ribs and cracked the back of my rib. And well, in the pits, this guy Curtis, who worked for Beamer, he was right in front of me, parked right in front of the motorhome. He's like, hey, come sit on this thing. Well, the nights before, I wasn't able to sleep. I was getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep. I kept tossing and turning. My ribs were killing me. I'd even lay down on my stomach where I tore my fascia because my back and my rib was hurting so bad. So I jump on his thing. I did it twice that night or that day. And I slept like a baby. The pain was gone. I slept good. It was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. Like for a machine to do something like that was amazing. And right then I was hooked. I'm like, I got to get myself a Beamer.
Yeah. And do you have a preference between lower and higher intensity devices, or do you use a combination of both? What's your kind of routine now?
I use a combination of both. The higher intensity ones, I feel like for the it helped me with my inflammation and stuff. It wasn't nothing that I could feel. But with the Beamer PMF, I could actually feel it. Like my breathing was different. I felt lighter. It was the craziest thing. Just feeling it, and then just with my pain. Like I believed in it so much. I did after that race. I was hurting so bad that my neighbors, they have horse ranches and they have the horse beamer. So they let me borrow their horse beamer, which was sneaky nasty, and got in that thing, wrapped up in it, and it was helping me. It was helping me sleep during the night. It was helping me with that pain and stuff like that. So I believe in the lower intensity one for the beamer as a feeling wise, like you can feel a difference. The high intensity one, man, they did tremendously on my knees. When I first started riding, my knees were swelling up. Sometimes I couldn't ride for 2 or 3 days after I got done riding. But as soon as I had consistency on the PEMF, and it was a world changer. My knee never swelled up unless I did something, dabbed it in a corner or something like that. But they're amazing devices.
Oh, cool. And we'll talk to you about the HBOT as well, the oxygen chambers, because there's something that I really believe in too. Really love those, seeing that they're popping up more and more often now and people are using them. What was your first introduction to a HBOT, and what was your experience of that?
That was the same time last year when I crashed in San Diego and got hurt, got landed on. My chiropractor put me in the Hyperbaric. So I got introduced to the Hyperbaric and the PEMF at the same time. It was on the same day. So it's not like I feel a difference. I don't feel anything when I get out of it. Maybe a little bit more energy or something. I don't know. But I just know that when I do get out of it, the next day I'm recovered. And it's just not using the Hyperbaric or the PEMF. It's a combination of all that stuff, right? So it all does something different. And I believe in all of it.
No, that's cool. It's interesting you said you use them on the same day. Did they have a protocol in terms of, did they use the PEMF first or the HBOT first? Do you remember?
Yep, I still do. I still use the PEMF first and then go into the Hyperbaric. Yeah.
Okay, no, cool. I wanted to check because that's the way I'd probably apply it as well. It's preparing the cells and then putting yourself in the oxygen chamber.
Yep.
It's my preferred way to do it as well. So it's good. Have you noticed any other benefits from incorporating HBOT into your recovery routine?
HBOT? Oh, yeah. I'm in that thing at least 3 to 5 days a week. Yeah. With the PEMF, the beamer, and our aero recovery, Hyperbaric. Yeah, I'm in those things all the time, as much as I can.
Yeah. And do you have your own one now? Because I see you mentioned you wanted to get one. I don't know if that happened.
Not yet. Not yet. I'm working on. I'm actually working on a recovery trailer right now that I can take to the races and have a Hyperbaric, have the beamer PEMF, and red light therapy, cold plunge, sauna. So, but I'm in the process of buying my own. So I'm gonna live in that thing. I want my whole family in it. I want my mother-in-law in it. I want my wife in it. My mom, my dad. I want everyone to be in that thing as much as possible.
Nice, sounds good. And you touched on it then, but are you using anything else other than PEMF and HBOT? Is there anything you're using on a regular routine? I
use red light. So every time that I do my recovery stuff, I usually do it all at the same time. So red light, and then I don't do the sauna and cold plunge every time, but I do have a sauna blanket that I use too. So mainly those 4 things, and then plus all my supplements. I take Hammer Nutrition supplements and stuff like that for recovery also. Oh, cool. So kind of coming back to the Supercross side of things, so someone that is racing at such a high level still at the age of 42, which I still don't think is too old, but for a level for sporting, obviously it is. Where do you see the future of Supercross and those extreme sports going forward in terms of the recovery technology and methods? Do you see more people being able to do this at an older age with this technology coming in? Oh yeah, I don't think I could do this without the technology. There's so much demand on your body. It's so hard on it. The injuries. I mean, most of us guys are out there riding probably 80%, 70, 80% we're riding injured. And so there are guys using this technology, but it's not fully known. Yeah. I don't think people really know about it too much. Doctors kind of push it away and stuff like that. But I think here in the next year or two, couple years going, that it's going to start blowing up and people are going to start using it much more. Yeah. And that was going to be my next question, really. Do you see it becoming more mainstream? And
Are there barriers that you're seeing in your team in terms of like, do you speak to people about it? Do they roll their eyes, or is it, are they quite keen to try it?
No, they're definitely keen to try it. Like, I put them on my Beamer before, and I think the team owner, Mark Samuels, had a hurt hip or something like that, and he got on it, and he could not believe how much better he felt just from using the PMF.
Yeah.
And so, these guys are very interested. They're obviously very expensive devices,
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody could go out and buy their own, but if they can find their chiropractor that has it, or any kind of physician that have the devices that they could use, I definitely recommend it. It's a big, big help.
No, good. And for some of the younger racers, this is a bit more of a broad question, or anyone in extreme sports. If you can go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Piece of advice: pick your friends wisely. Who you hang out with. Man, give it all you can. It's motocross and supercross is a very short time. I mean, most careers don't even last 10 years. There are some that go longer, but it's just such a hard sport on your body. It's very demanding physically, mentally, emotionally. Put everything you have into it for that 10 years. Get out what you can, and never give up.
Yeah.
Never give up. You're going to go through a lot of trials and tribulations racing, man.
Yeah. No, I bet.
Never give up.
No, it's great advice. If anybody wants to come and find you, or if they want to watch one of your races or something, where do they need to start, Billy?
Peacock has them live every race. You can go to, we can't watch it, but my social medias are all at Billy Laninovich to stay updated. But to watch the races on Peacock.
Cool. I'll put some links under this podcast, so if people want to find you on Instagram or anything we've mentioned in the podcast, we'll link it down there. So thanks for joining us today, Billy. And for anyone listening, if they want to leave us a 5-star review, whatever platform you're listening on, it helps us get more amazing guests like Billy onto the podcast. So thanks for your time again, Billy.
Awesome, Andy. Thank you guys.